All right, we're going to move on to our next topic, guys. We'll get back to a little more Guardians later in the show. But today's episode of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show is brought to you by Epicor. Every team knows the value of hard work, of taking pride in what you build, in practicing every detail to get the best results. But no one player, no matter how amazing, can do it all alone. Working together makes getting the win easier. At Epicor, the all-stars are the hardworking manufacturers and distributors who create and deliver the things we all need, from aerospace to electrical to medical devices. From small businesses with big dreams to growing enterprises with global visions, we'll equip you with the right tools to move forward, think ahead, and lead the way, because as the clock ticks down, you need to make the most out of every hardworking minute. Easier doesn't cut corners, easier finds the lane. Discover your success at easierwithepicor.com. Jay, I've made it a personal goal of mine that every time you're on the show to find a PFF ranking to throw into the show, because I know how much you love PFF rankings. But I did think this one was interesting. And before I show you the most current ranking, I want to tell you what it is and where the Browns started. PFF ranked every roster in the NFL 1 to 32, taking in a variety of different factors. They said if there was a tie, they reverted back to their overall PFF grades for position by position to determine any ties. There was not a tie with the Browns, just so we're all clear, but that is how they did some of this determination. When Andrew Berry took over the Browns, and shout out to Ben Axelrod, former WKYC person, for pointing this out to me, but when Andrew Berry took over the Browns were 11th in PFF's overall roster rankings heading into that season. They released their top 32 this season, and I'll show you the first 6 teams up on the list. In order, the Eagles, according to PFF, have the best roster in football, followed by the Ravens, the Lions, the Chiefs, the Bills, the Rams. No big issue. We could disagree on an order, whatnot, but pretty much those are 6 of the best teams in football. They have 6 of the best rosters. That's the top 6. Let's look at the bottom 6 now. 27, the Giants. 28, the Jets. 29, the Panthers.
How'd the Titans get 30 and 30?
Because 30 is supposed to be the New Orleans Saints, and I copy and pasted.
Oh, okay.
31 is the Titans. And,
they suck so bad they're 30 and 31.
32 is the Browns.
They're still better than the Browns.
30 is the Saints. I apologize. That is me being in a rush this morning. So they started when Andrew Berry took over the team at number 11.
No.
In the most recent iteration, entering the 2025 season, they have fallen down to number 32. Do you guys have any issue or any disagreement with PFF when look at the overall rosters, thinking the Browns are the worst of the worst this year?
Well, normally PFF's dead to me.
I'm with you. I think PFF is.
I think PFF is lost. I think they get some of the guys right, but then I look at some of the players' numbers, and I don't know what they're watching. And I know they've got former players and scouts and coaching and all that, whatever their complicated formula is. But in this particular thing, when I got this last night and I started thinking about this topic, the first thing I said was, okay, let's start a quarterback, because that's the most important position in the sport. They've got 4, and we don't know much about any of them except for Joe Flacco was good once and is old now. So I'm not giving him any points at quarterback. Who's our best running back? I don't know. Who's our best wide receiver? It's probably Jeudy, but is he really a wide receiver 1?
I did this with Tybus. We was on the barbershop, and we did a blind test. I took the list of the top 32. PFF had their rankings out, and I put Jeudy in the mix.
Yeah.
Tybus had him as a tier 2.
Who do they have offensively that's a top 5 player at their position? Top 10 player?
Jeudy's not.
Maybe Njoku?
Jeudy's not even top 32. They don't have him.
That's why I said maybe he's a wide receiver 1. Maybe. Yeah. I don't think he is, but, I mean, he's our wide receiver 1, so I guess he has to be. But when you start looking at it that way, I'm fine with them being 32. The other thing to me is, and this is a point that we weren't really going to discuss, but when you mentioned that Andrew Berry was number 11 when he got here and we're 32 now, this is why I continually scratch my head and shake it and say, wait a minute, how is this guy safe? In what universe is this job performance acceptable?
Yeah, it's
and that's why I will continue to say that, because he has the wheel in his hands. And if we were a bus, we're not driving to the Super Bowl, we've gone over the cliff. And so I don't understand in what universe anybody can look at that and say, he's good. Yeah, he's good. He's not in any jeopardy whatsoever. Okay, then you accept not mediocrity. And you accept and reward and continue to employ clearly a below average effort.
This is why people, they say, G. Bush, what are you talking about? This is why I say if you're going to be 32 in talent, I need to see all rookies playing. This Mason Graham, I'm telling you again, Jim Schwartz, this should be a directive from the ownership. There's no way he's rotating. If you got Mike Hall and Mason Graham, they better be your starting defensive tackles day one. Not debatable.
I think that's going to be the case.
Schlesinger, the
linebacker,
starter.
Yeah.
Harold Fannin Jr. better be in packages day one, and Junkins is your number one running back. This is what the mandate should be. And sooner or later, there should be a rookie starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. If you're going to be 32 and you're going to have an older roster and you're going to have the worst talented team in the league, why are you not playing? The only way, you saving your job is if you find multiple people that you say, I got a starter here, this guy was all pro, this guy was at least all rookie, this guy was rotating in, this guy. They need to be playing these young dudes. I don't know why, why would young dudes not be playing on this roster?
I feel like people are finally coming to my birthday party. I've been sitting here bowling by myself, drinking punch,
eating cake,
just waiting for somebody to show up. Nobody ever shows up.
You played the right song. I said, "Oh, what's this song in here?"
Nobody ever shows up. I've been saying this since December.
So let me ask you to come to my birthday party. In what world is Andrew Berry safe?
Well, it's a fair question. It's more than fair, and I think part of it is. Listen, had Deshaun Watson worked out, everything else would look a whole lot better.
Probably.
That's the largest if in the universe.
I hear you. But and the owner finally puts his hand up and says, I'll take the blame for that. And listen, I've said this 100 times. Andrew was the first one in on Deshaun. Andrew really likes Deshaun. Andrew was doing work on Deshaun when he was in Philly. Andrew wanted Deshaun. Kevin wanted Deshaun. Everybody wanted Deshaun.
Yep.
But I do think there came a point where they're like, we're not at a good point here. And Jimmy said, it's too late now. Like, all cast, no break. We move ahead. And so for that reason, I think they've sort of put his hand up and take responsibility for it. Because if that worked, everything else on this roster looks a whole lot better.
Well, if we're 1,000 miles closer to the sun, we're all dead.
I hear you. But again, I do think there was a point where the GM and the head coach were like, this is not sustainable. We shouldn't do this. And the owner said, no, we're going to keep going with this. So that's a whole other conversation, and you can have that conversation of whether or not he's done a good enough job. You can certainly make the case he has not. But when it comes to this, being dead last, it doesn't matter if they're 32 or if they're 30. If you're the second ugliest person in the bar, does it matter?
That doesn't matter to me.
You're still not
if you're below 22, everybody in the organization is getting side-eyed.
Yeah,
everybody.
Yeah. At 31, you're going home alone from the bar and you're eating French bread pizza at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Burning the roof of your mouth.
Burning the roof of your mouth.
You know you're burning the roof of your mouth on that because you're drunk. You don't care that it needs to cool off for 5 minutes.
I believe that those moments build the most character in a man.
You're right.
The French bread pizza going home alone.
Yeah.
You start to really rethink some things. You really do some
Turn on the late night sports center, watching by yourself.
Soul searching. Like, this ain't got this game.
Mouth skin hanging.
just felt in the back of your mouth.
But that's where they are. Like,
if you want to make the case that they're 31st or 30th, great. Okay.
You're still going home alone.
What difference does it make? I mean, come on. So I don't get wrapped up in stuff like this. Clearly, they're one of the worst rosters in the NFL. I don't think anyone would question that. I think we had the numbers that I think Vegas has their win total at 3.5 or 5.5. 5.5.
3.5, I thought.
Was it 3.5? I don't remember. Mike,
I think it's 4.5.
4.5.
4.5.
Okay.
Split the difference.
So,
how did Joel Bitonio sign up to come back for this?
$20 million.
I guess, but at some point he's stacking millions on top of millions.
I haven't had a chance to talk to any of those guys about this, but I thought Joe, was it on our show? Mm-hmm. Where Joe said, you better be sure.
Yeah, he did.
Because there's once you're out, you can't go back.
Yeah.
And I thought that probably, if I had to guess, that probably resonated a little bit with Joel, that you better make sure.
Yeah.
And
you're not coming back.
And I think
unless you're Joe Flacco.
Losing messes with your psyche. Like, I'd be willing to wager, like, if you watch and you think about the way your brain is wired and the dopamines, I haven't been losing at that level, but I was on a 1 in 10 team in college. and the rankings come out and it's you and Kent State, and y'all like 117th and 113th in the country, you start really questioning life. You like, bro, I'm out here working this hard to get this amount of feedback, this amount of kickback, and I'm just doing this. I'm destroying my body. I'm tired. I don't even want to be in meetings. I think when you do that with Joe, and two, the offense last year put everybody into a depression, because I didn't even want to. There's so many games I would do the post. I did every single post game show with McNuggets. Shout out to McNuggets. He's right over there. By the way,
shout out to you too, G.
When we used to get on them streams, we used to just be looking at each other like, what we gonna say? Like, we trying to figure out how we gonna get through 30 minutes of it, because it was that nasty. When we got out there against the Cowboys, and Deshaun Watson was throwing the ball and the ball was going out of bounds. They was like 40 yards out of bounds, 40, 45, and I'm like, I thought that this is 4,500 I was asking for. We're not getting any. These balls are not catchable. They're not catchable. Jerry Jeudy and then Amari Cooper checked out. I was like, oh, Amari he never said nothing bad about nobody. That's how nasty it was last year.
Is he unsigned, by the way?
Yes. No jobs.
Yeah.
Wow. Think about it. Him and Nick Chubb, no jobs yet right now.
Washington was the one for me. Washington, I remember it was sometime in October. I went to that game. I booked the ticket like Friday.
I remember that.
I'm like, this could get ugly. So I flew in and out of Baltimore. I flew in Sunday morning, came home Sunday night because I wanted to be there just in case. And I was like, oh my God, this is like worst case scenario. This is going to be as bad as worse than we could have dreamt. And I remember talking to a couple people in the press box who were like, yeah, we didn't see this coming. Like, this is getting really, really ugly now. And just the reaction on the players' faces after that game was like, we are in for something.
Because they knew what you knew.
Well, and then they saw what Jaden Daniels was doing on the other sideline. They were like, when you see a 12-year-old killing you on the screen, he's 13 and he's destroying you, and you look like you have nothing to offer. You can't run basic plays.
Yeah. Washington.
It was also seeing Jaden Daniels that game. It was week 5, Jason, by the way. That was the epitome of like, that's what it's supposed to look like.
That's what it's supposed to look like.
Wow.
And this is not what it is.
Yep. I got on the plane in Washington to come home thinking the Brown season is over before the Guardian season. Like, legitimately.
And it was.
It's over.
It was.
Yeah.
And that leads to number 32 in roster. That leads to you. So for me, it's the youth movement. Because I could, like I'm saying, my goal is, I just want a fun season. If the Browns are competitive and fun with young kids, I go back and think about the way I felt when we saw Baker Mayfield play the first game against the Jets. We knew the Browns wasn't that good. We knew they wasn't that good, but we saw Baker play.
Gave you hope.
Yeah.
He came the next week, you played awesome. They started playing a young guy named Nick Chubb who had like 200 yards the very next week against the Raiders. That game was – look at this man.
No, because on one hand, it seems like it was a million years ago, but when you start talking about details, you're like, damn, that was 10 minutes ago.
Yeah,
how did we get there? How did we get here from there? And Jay, I know you keep saying it. You keep looking at me like, no, but like I was good with that. That week to week, that was fun.
That was like, man.
You know what? If he was still here, we'd be having the conversation. Will Baker ever be able to beat Mahomes, Allen, and Lamar Jackson?
You know what? That's better than? Are we number 32 or number 31?
Yes, in many ways, yes. It is.
Sign me up for that.
But I want the whole thing. I want this town to celebrate a Super Bowl, and I don't think you were ever going to get there with him. So if you got to go to the bottom again, the problem is, do you have faith in the people putting this thing together to get it right? But that's really what it comes down to.
That is the issue.
Yeah.
And when you put it in that vein, we were number 11, and now we're number 32. In my book, that's a down arrow.
Right.
And we can't go any further. Right. Like we're at the basement. We're in the basement. And it's just, it hurts my brain. Yeah. It hurts my head when I think about it and when I talk about it. This job's bad for my health, guys. It's the only thing that I participate in that I hate. This is it. That's a true story. And when you guys will figure this out, when you get to your 50s, you know what you say? Hell with that, man. If I don't like doing it, I'm not going to do it. Yeah. I'm not going to do it. And I don't like talking about the Browns quarterback. So from now on, we're not talking about Browns quarterbacks ever again.
Not on Mondays.
Mondays and Fridays, no Browns quarterback.
For at least